Castle in the Clouds is here today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks so much for coming down. Thanks for being one of our new sponsors here on White Mountains Today. So it was good to see the ad this morning.
It's a great channel. Great, fits in exactly what we do. You know, we're a big 5,500 acre outdoor place kind of museum. So it's a natural fit.
Absolutely. So for those people who are uninformed, let's give a quick definition of what Castle in the Clouds is.
So the name sort of says it all. The castle itself is a 16-room historic mansion perched on top of a mountain in the Ossipee Range. We're about 45 minutes south of here in Moulton Borough, so we're on the north end of Lake Winnipesaukee. It was built by one of the richest men in the world at the time. Started the estate in 1910. Today it's a museum, nonprofit museum open to the public. We've got gift shop, fabulous cafe, wedding and event space, 30 miles of hiking trails, horseback riding, carriage rides, a trout pond, picnic areas. I know I'm forgetting something, but
well, there's a lot. We'll put
there's
it that
a
way.
lot to do at the castle.
Plus the castle itself, which is just absolutely fabulous. And I've been very fortunate to be able to go there several times a year for the last few years. And one of the things that I've really noticed is the change and the improvements that have gone on. Obviously, the houses remain the same, but as part of what you guys have been doing, you've just been making these improvements, and it's very noticeable in terms of the improvements.
Thank you. To date, since the Castle Preservation Society took over the management and running of the castle in 2006, we've raised and spent over $1.8 million just on restoration. You know, the castle, again, the estate started to be built in 1910, so it's getting on in years. It was built very quickly. It's
thousands of workers.
It's a really funky, strange kind of building. It's a beautiful building, but very unique. And, you know, like all older structures that were built very quickly and are unique, it's got some really interesting restoration challenges.
Oh,
so
I bet.
We're happy to save it.
I bet. And then, the neat things, I always like going, because there's the kind of the front of the mansion and the back of the mansion, which is where the kitchen and the back stairs up to the servants' quarters, which is really one of my favorite parts of it. Just it's still fancy and ornate, but simplified.
Yeah.
Because it was obviously the servants' quarters, so they didn't need all the fanciness. And the floor and the kitchen, all the different details that were part of that. If you had that kind of money back in
it's like it's almost like being like in a live Downton Abbey.
Right.
Or, you know, the 20s is so popular right now, and the early 20s was the heyday of the castle. So, you know, Boardwalk Empire, Downton Abbey, Great Gatsby. I tell people, if you want to see where the 1920s were really lived, come to the castle, you'll walk through it. Our museum is unique too in that there's, I think other than the dining room, because it's very small, there are no rooms that are roped off. You're allowed to freely walk through the entire mansion and be in the rooms and walk through a bathroom and feel what it's like to have lived there. My museum manager has done a great job. The way that the entire experience is laid out is, it's as if the plants, that's the couple who built and owned the castle, they stepped away for the afternoon and you're their guests. So you sort of get free range of the house, and there's clothes on the bed and things in the closet, and the bureaus have artifacts. It's all period, it's all authentic, nothing is not. So it's unique for a historic house museum.
Right. Plus there's a lot, one of the things that I really enjoy is that you've got magazine articles and you have descriptions and of all the different things about the plants and their life. So as you're going through, you can almost be transformed back or transported back. You just kind of get into that mode and you're reading the stuff. You know, the plant, which was the shoe plant, what was the name of that?
He had the largest shoe factory in the world when he sells it and retires in the early 1900s. 6 city blocks it covered in Jamaica Plain, Boston.
And they had their own daycare center, which was unheard of at the time. Bowling alley, so nurse and doctors.
And you know, and it talks about, just like today we compete for good workers, back then all of the factories were competing for the same workers. And if you were a skilled factory worker, you were in demand. So the amenities that they offered their workers helped attract them and keep them.
Right.
So some of it was maybe they wanted to be good to their workers, but I think a lot of it was just smart business.
And didn't he also donate money to a place in Maine?
Oh, you've done your homework.
I read the little notes there.
He did. So he's originally from Bath, Maine, and after he retires, sells everything, and becomes one of the world's wealthiest men, he builds the plant home in Bath, Maine, which is a pensioner's home, they call it back then. We would call it a nursing home today. And he endows that, and that building and that facility still exists to this day as a gift to the city, his hometown.
It's an amazing history about his life and what became of him and everything else. I don't want to give anything away. And then just seeing what he wanted to do with this home and the views. Of course, now he owned also. You can see some shots there. Owned down to Lake Winnipesaukee.
Yeah, pretty amazing. So the estate now is a little over 5,000 acres. Originally, it was up to 7. He took a good portion of that and he built Ball Peak, which is a very exclusive, even to this day, Colony Club golf course on the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee. That's the unique part of our estate too, is there are a lot of great historic homes around the nation, but most of the land is all gone. We still retain 5,500 acres. All that land is owned and managed by the Lakes Region Conservation Trust. It's all in conservation easement. It will never be developed.
Which is amazing. Now, you were also telling me just a little bit before, which I think is very exciting, about becoming a National Historic Landmark.
Correct. So the National Park Service administers the National Register of Historic Places for our country. And the highest level of designation that you could be is a landmark property. And a landmark, for instance, the Statue of Liberty is a National Historic Landmark. Our application is currently working its way through the Park Service. We've hit no red flags so far. They've given us the green light. So we're pretty excited to hopefully achieve that status.
That's incredible.
Sooner rather than later, but good research and good historical records take time. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, you also brought some passes. So we've got here. We're going to give away 2 this morning because it's your first time on the show. 2 adult passes to go down to Castle in the Clouds and check out the castle and all its doings. And we have a simple question for you. It's what year was the castle completed, which then kind of leads to what year's anniversary is next year. So I'm kind of really giving away some stuff here. So 2 passes so you can win some stuff. 2 passes here. Oh, and here goes the phone. Good morning, White Mountains Today.
Would it be completed in 1914?
It would be completed in 1914 because next year is going to be the 100th anniversary of the completion of the Castle in the Clouds. Who's on the phone?
Monique.
Monique, how are you?
Great.
Good. Well, Monique, we have 2 passes for you to go down to Castle in the Clouds and check it out. Have you been there before?
No, I've never been.
Well, there
great.
you go.
Excellent.
Now you can go. Hang on the phone. We'll get some more information from you. Maybe Ryan can get that phone for us. And Monique gets to go down and check out Castle in the Clouds.
It's amazing to me still, like people in the area who have never been. It's one of those places like, I've known about that, or I see it in the paper, I've heard about it for years. But it's amazing. I'm a valley boy myself, and the lake to the valley is not that far, but it's like
not.
2 worlds away. When I talk to lake people and I say, where do you go shopping? They all go to Tilton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you go to North Conway? It's funny. So we're happy to have people from the valley drive only 45 minutes south to come visit us.
And I think the other thing too is that, as we were talking before, the Preservation Society has really stepped it up. And if you were one of those people who went there, say back in the 80s or the 90s, and were like, it's a big house, you got to go now. Because like I say, every time you go, there's a little bit more, just the embellishments that you've put into it. And I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to the time when you can go down in the basement, because there's a lot of information about the basement.
The basement is super cool.
So I'm looking forward to being able to go down in there.
Next year, I will almost promise. So what we're doing now is we're restoring the stone walls. There's 3 stories of stone walls in one section of the castle. And because the castle was started in 1910, finished in 1914, all of those stones are veneer. They're stuck on. They're stuck on with Portland cement, which has about 100-year shelf life.
Oh, no.
So a lot of stones popping off. And they create the structure of the wall, so it's important that we stick them back on or we're in danger of collapse. Once that stone wall work is done and we can redo the stairs, then I can take you around back and into the basement and show you that, because the basement's amazing. It has one of the first central vacs ever in the country, refrigeration system. He was making electricity up there before anyone on Lake Winnipesaukee even had electricity. And we have a lot of those systems still. So it'd be really neat to show people that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming by today.
It was
I know we'll see you again. And so definitely check out the Castle in the Clouds. You have the Castle in the Clouds website,
Beautiful new website,
which is
CastleInTheClouds.org.
CastleInTheClouds.org. Got to get the org part in there. And that'll give you all the information you need, a lot of little tidbits, plus also give you directions to get down there. Very easy to get to.
Easy. 16 South, hang a right onto 25 at the barbecue place in Ossipee. I mean...
And there it is.
Come on, Valley people, drive down.
There you go. Well, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you again soon, and we'll be back.